I have a few. This is working a little differently than. Oh, I see. The mouse is working it now. How do I go to? I just want to go to. I want to go to this one here. My last slide. So it should be right here. There we go. It's something we take for granted, and it's a hypothesis or conjecture. And many times, if you have an assumption, if you've got a scientific bent, you're going to experiment and test to make sure that assumption is right. I think a lot of business people don't do that. I think that they make a qualitative judgment and decide, based on their own experience, whether that assumption is good enough and solid enough to be a fact. And what I'd like you all to do is to think about what assumptions you made or are making in your business strategy. I would like you to write down 3 assumptions, and I would like you to identify which one is the greatest leap of faith. So when I say leap of faith, which assumption did you make in creating your business and now running your business that was true, that maybe you had the least amount of information about, the least amount of factual information to substantiate it? So if you work for another company, maybe think about what that company's owners are assuming. So the further along you are in your company, the more possible it is that your assumptions have now become fact. But a lot of times you keep operating under the same assumptions, and the world changes. And so you're back with old assumptions, you haven't changed them. So I'm just going to give you a few minutes to write down 3 assumptions. I think we'll leave this for now. Okay. Oops. And if you can't come up with 3, maybe at least 2. Okay, great. Okay, so right. This is fine. So maybe when you're done. Are you guys doing it too?
Assume they were.
I know. So 2, 4, 6, 8. Oh, perfect. Okay.
My grandpa told me about Benny Hill says.
Does it start with ASS? We're all adults here. Okay, I think we're almost done. Another 30 seconds. I feel like you. Time to work and write.
I can bring my bell then.
Ding. How about 20 seconds? Is everybody... Okay, now we're going to break into 2s. This is the first time we've done this little exercise. And it's going to be you 2 and the next 2, 2, 2, 2. Okay. So what I want you to do is take one at a time, tell each other what your assumptions are, and just read the assumptions. Don't go into a lot of explanation. We don't have time for that. But just read the assumptions to each other, and then, for example, Susan, you will decide or question Steve on what is the biggest leap of faith, and kind of challenging him on it. So we're going to have 5 minutes for this. And then we're going to report back when we do our introductions. Yes, so like when you hear Joy's assumptions, you're going to pinpoint the one that you're guessing, you're going to assume is the biggest leap of faith, and ask her about that and confirm and just see which one you come up with. Okay? And then when we introduce ourselves, we're going to report back. It's the first time I've done this. It's usually a lecture. Okay.
People are lost.
One of the things they really like in this group is sharing and helping each other out. So we try to encourage that. And they kind of get to know each other's businesses and, make recommendations, suggestions, all that. Aha! So who's online? Is it just Pam? Pam. Hello. How are you doing, Johnny? Good to see you too. Are you here to join us? Okay. We're just about to do introductions. You kind of missed the first part. This is an empty seat here, and if you're real quick, you can get some lunch. But we're going to clear it up at 12:25. So there's 2 empty seats. Boy. Can we eavesdrop on you? Oh, is it, or it's confidential?
No, it's not.
It's okay?
Yeah. So you want to hear about the second one?
Yes.
Solid experience is as good, if not better, than actual degree.
Okay.
Even a degree doesn't give them the work ethic. I mean, they went to school and they did their homework, but that's it.
Wow. That's a big leap of faith.
It is.
A little bit of that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So.
I want to hear the second one. The first one.
Okay, the first one was my assumption that if I sent a resume, they'd trust me that I sent it for a good reason. It's all they.
It's a leap of faith.
It was completely opposite. It's almost like having to explain myself why we picked this as a good candidate, but this doesn't have that. But I know, but no.
So they don't necessarily trust you.
They don't, right?
Certain ones,
and it's funny because we'll send 4, and my last pick will be their first pick, and we'll go through all 4 of them, and my first pick will be the one they hire.
They probably have to go through the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 1 more minute. Okay. Everybody, we have 1 more minute. I got it.
Is this your streaming?
Yeah. Oh. And I don't think Pam's not on there yet, so I don't think anybody's on.
You can't even say hi.
But this will be on our archives, so.
Okay.
Yeah, say hi, Pam.
Hi, Pam.
Hopefully you're on now.
Okay.
You're missing Baggins.
Hi, everybody that visits this in the next 5 years. So, were you guys still talking?
No.
Go ahead.
We're done.
Okay. Wrapping up, everybody? Yeah. So we'll start. But they went to town on this. Okay, we need to go ahead and do our introductions. Is everybody done? You're ready? You know what the leap of faith is. Well, we're going to start with Steve. So your name, your company, and what the leap of faith is that you have.
Okay. I'm assuming my name is Steve Francis.
What made you a leap of faith?
And a leap of faith that I own a computer repair company, Saguaro PC Tech. You want just the biggest leap of faith?
Mm-hmm. Oh. Just one. We only have time for one.
That customers are loyal and will always return to you if you're good to them.
Okay. Susan?
I'm Susan Bushman, and I own a beach store called Beach Carnival. And my assumption is, I think Steve determined what the biggest leap of faith is. Open the doors and they will come.
Okay. Tim?
My name is Tim Bentley. I'm a partner in Media Concepts, or Media Mainers, Media on. I also Media Boise, Media Fillmore, do it. And our biggest leap of faith was that the biggest assumption is that companies would have a desire to sponsor or spend money with our company to reach our audience of healthy, educated. So we assume that,
or enough companies would,
right,
to make it profitable. Yeah. Jen?
I'm Jen Delaney with Tech Connections, and I would say the biggest assumption they had when they opened the business was that they would only work on admin and clerical work, just concentrate on those two industries. But with the changing of everything and knowing and how everything changes, our biggest leap of faith was opening doors to other jobs, such as labor work and warehouse and assembly work, and whether that would really be profitable for us. And it worked out.
So do you know if there was any testing that was done? Like surveys, interviews of customers, like we've talked about in the past, interviewing your customer to make sure they have the need that you've identified for them?
Very informally.
Okay.
Nothing really formal.
Okay. So it's more gut.
Yeah, more of an
Marie. Marie.
Marie Darren, and my company is DarrenConnectedPartners.com, an online business. My biggest assumption is that I can have a global.
Okay. Paul?
Artist, amazing animal portraits. And my assumption is that the money will come.
Okay. More specific? Or that's your biggest leap of faith?
The biggest leap of faith is this will be a self-sustaining business.
Okay.
Sunny? My assumption is that our customers need more avenues or a different way to order lunch. We're busy putting those lunch tended to, so we're assuming that people would like to use online ordering, so that our leap of faith is that we're going to be rolling that out in the next month as another way of ordering lunch.
Okay.
Besides our current Mac and phone.
Great, that's good. I'm just going to give you mine before we go any further to kind of give a little more illustration. I'm Dale Dillon with the Smart Group, but I opened up Amazing Teas and More, an online business retail store back in 2007. And back then, my biggest leap of faith was that people would be willing to spend more for eco-friendly fabric than others. And I found out they weren't.
Wait, was that your assumption or your leap of faith?
That was a leap of faith. That was an assumption I made back in 2007. And if I'd had the Lean Startup Canvas and tested it, I would have found out. So I'm closing that business. But that's what I mean by a leap of faith. That was a pretty big assumption. I mean, everybody assumes that there's somebody out there that's going to pay money to you. But what I assumed is that they'd be willing to pay more money for the bamboo shirts. So it's a little different. So
I'm David Updegraff with Best Care at Home. And my leap of faith, or our leap of faith as a company, is that in rolling out our fee-for-service end of our business, that we will enroll enough clients to make it profitable.
that there'll be enough of a market for that. Great. We'll skip back here to Sharif, who is on the SMART team, and he's a wonderful website designer. I can't say today that he's the best because we have another website person here, but usually I say that he's the best. But top 50? Yeah. You two are in the top 2. Okay. So Sharif. Yeah.
My name is Sharif Morgan, and Connected Web Developers is my company. And my leap of faith was when I started doing websites, there were people charging pretty little, people charging a lot, and my leap of faith was I could fit into that middle.
Mm-hmm. Did you do any testing?
Did I do any testing? Yeah, networking and asking people.
Okay. Joy.
Our assumption was that a corporate website through our corporate company would be enough for our local presence. And obviously it didn't happen.
Okay.
Definitely a local website was needed.
That's excellent. Yeah, good. Chris.
Chris Molina with Heartfelt Workforce and Life Force. And my assumption was that business professionals would, let me say that businesses who did professional training with their team, that type of training would change everybody. And my leap of faith was really to understand more at the core of it. Everybody has their own perceptions and their own personal stuff they bring to the table. So my assumption and my leap of faith is really focusing on their personal development first, and then it'll enhance with the professional.
So you did a little pivot.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, Johnny, why don't you introduce yourself, and if you have a leap of faith you'd like to share with us, because you came in late and missed our exercise, but
sorry.
That's okay. We're just glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm delighted. I'm Johnny Wyatt. I'm with the J3 Effect, and I would say that our leap of faith is that we can find companies that are willing and able to spend some money every month on an ongoing basis for internet marketing. We're a full-service internet marketing agency, and our goal and aim is to make you visible to Google, irresistible to your audience, and to keep you connected with everyone who's shown interest in you. And the result of that is what we call the J3 Effect.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Phil, I'm going to have Mike introduce you in a minute, but would you like to share any leap of faith?
Yeah. My leap of faith when I started to develop the application, which is known as Local Ranker, and Mike probably will say a couple of words on that, was that I could build a website builder, that means an application, a software application, for people to build a website themselves without any problem. So we dumbed down everything so that non-techies could, easily build a website. And that was a leap of faith, which didn't pay out at all, because only 40%, 30 to 40% of people are actually able to go in and build a website. But the biggest error in this assumption and this leap of faith at the same time was that people would have time to do that, and business owners don't have time to do that. So even if they're able to do it, because the interface is very simple, they just don't want to do it because their time is better employed chasing clients and services.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So what I'd like you to do is, now that you've identified your leap of faith, and maybe you might want to think of some of the other assumptions that you didn't choose as your biggest leap, but something maybe that's more current if you've already solved it, is in the next week, and then in our introductions next week, come back and report on how you decided to test that assumption so that you didn't waste time and money. And you should come up with 2 hypotheses. So does everybody understand what a hypothesis is? Where you have to be very specific. I'm probably going to go over this much too fast now, but you're going to be very specific. So if I had wanted to test, for example, whether people wanted to spend more money on Bamboo, I could have said, I'm going to email 100 people, I'm going to call 20 who I think are in my market, and I'm going to have the same questions for them I'm going to test. And if out of 100, more than 50, or maybe more than, you have to decide what the number is that you want. So maybe if at least 40 out of that 100 get back to me that they're willing to pay $20 as opposed to $15, and I have to be very specific and quantitative, then I would take those results and then decide that maybe it could be a fact. Now that fact could change, become an assumption again as the world changes. So is everybody comfortable with what I meant by hypothesis? You have to state your if this, then that. And here's my measurement. So I watched 6 teams at Intuit do this in the last couple of days. And it was so incredible because they had to really, it was very hard work, and they had to come up with these hypotheses, go test them, come back and decide whether they're going to stick with the plan they had or tweak it or totally change. And so they came up with 6 new product ideas for Intuit, which was really exciting to watch. Okay.